Hello, everyone, and welcome to our fifth edition of the REIMAGINE 2020 virtual conference series, brought to you by MouseBelt Blockchain Accelerator and Multi.io cryptocurrency exchange. I'm your co-host, Ashlie Meredith, and today we're back with another university segment of our end-of-year special Happy Hodl Days. We're delighted to have Basile here with us. She's a recent graduate from Golden Gate University School of Law in San Francisco. Hello, Mary. How are you doing today?
Hi, I'm good. I'm doing well. How are you?
Doing great. Thank you so much for joining us. So a little background, MouseBelt Blockchain Accelerator, we have an office in San Francisco. It's within blocks of Golden Gate University. So some of our team members have been able to do guest speaking sessions. And so there's obviously some student interest in blockchain, and there's professors who are interested in blockchain at Golden Gate University. And one of your professors, Michelle Neitz, has been on the show a few times. So just for anyone tuning in, be sure to check out our REIMAGINE 2020 YouTube channel, smash that subscribe button, and go check out some of the other conversations on the California Blockchain Working Group and regulations from professors over at Golden Gate University. But back to Mary, tell us about your experience. How did you get into blockchain? You know, where did you start? You know, what did you study in school, and how did you discover blockchain?
So I came from a very different background. I studied political science and Italian and women's and gender studies in undergrad, and went to law school, not really super interested in pursuing a career in business or finance. A few of my friends got finance degrees and went on and are happily working with that. But I took business associations with Professor Neitz and loved it. Was surprised to have done as good as I did. And I was talking to her about what other classes she was going to be offering in the spring, and she plugged this blockchain class. And I think we're the only law school, or one of the only law schools, I'm not sure statewide, but that offered a blockchain class. So I signed up for it. I had no experience in blockchain before I took the class. So I was a little nervous, but really excited just because I liked her a lot. And I ended up really loving the class and just learning about every kind of aspect about blockchain. And I really enjoyed all of the speakers. She did a really great job of bringing people that are working pretty much at every strata of blockchain, from Adam and other guys at MouseBelt and people from the State Department. It was incredible.
Yeah, so blockchain and law classes at the law school level, I can't speak exactly to the numbers there, but it's definitely the cutting edge schools, right, that are offering, I think, a lot of undergraduate classes in maybe blockchain and business, blockchain and law, but it's definitely super new to have a full course in a graduate level law school class on blockchain. So tell us more about the class, and how was it structured? What did you learn? What were the students interested in?
Well, we did a good amount of reading on our own, and then we would come to class, and it would be a pretty open dialogue where Professor Neitz would just kind of pick at certain things in the reading or viewing. A lot of it too was podcasts and just like even online articles. So it was kind of informal and different from what a normal law class would be, which I enjoyed, especially as a second semester, third year ready for graduation. So it was a breath of fresh air to be able to like speak so openly, and especially as someone with very little background in blockchain finance, just to be able to learn from my peers who did have that background or other people that didn't have that background. So I really enjoyed that. Most of the class was structured around our research project, which ended up being a paper where we were tasked with picking any company subject, obviously focused in law, and how blockchain may or may not be able to help or just like expanding on the connection there. A lot of people wrote, well, we all had different subjects, which was also interesting. So we presented to the class when we wrote out our outlines, and people wrote about makeup. And one guy was talking about space and how it might be used with satellites, which I thought was crazy and super interesting. Other subjects were real estate and taxes. I ended up going with labor rights, international human rights and labor law, and focused on Levi's because they are using blockchain to survey their factory workers and measure their well-being in their factories.
Oh, wow. That's super interesting. Well, before we dive into like the meat of your research project, because I do want to know more about it and let our viewers know how blockchain can apply to law, maybe in a way that they haven't thought about it before. Because I think conversations around blockchain and law usually focus on how the law is regulating blockchain, not how blockchain solutions can help us have like better legal institutions.
Yeah.
I want our viewers, any, university administrators out there listening in, or maybe even our partners who might be considering sponsoring or help getting going some more blockchain courses at universities, just a little bit more about the class, like how many students registered? Was this something that students were demanding? Was it all faculty driven? Do you know much about how it went about, how many people registered, how successful you think it was?
It was her first round of pitching the class, and we had about, I would say, like 15 to 20 students, which I guess for bigger universities isn't that large, but for law school classes, even like in your third year, you want to be taking more seminar style classes. And we filled the room. Sometimes didn't have enough seats just because people are taking some from classroom to classroom. But for the most part, the engagement and interest was there. Certain people had more sophisticated knowledge on the subjects than others, but I think as we touched on different areas for each day we met, I think once a week. I don't remember, but for each time that we did meet, everyone seemed pretty engaged and happy to participate. It never felt like there was any awkward lulls, or we were all really interested in learning just every angle that was being presented to us. Obviously, certain subjects are a bit more interesting than others, like the dark web and buying drugs online. But that was an interesting class. But yeah, I think that there was pretty sizable faculty support too. I don't know much about that, but it just was exciting to be in a class where a professor was so happy to be there and happy to teach and really interested in the work, and the students really fed off of that. Or I mean, I can speak for myself because it really helped me want to do the reading and still want to be in the space and do the work.
Absolutely. So I think if any administrators or professors are tuning in and they're thinking about bringing these kinds of opportunities to their students, it's well received. That's a pretty big class for a graduate level seminar class, up to 30 people. That's a huge class. And they should really think about doing that, because whether they know it quite yet or not, blockchain is going to be a in-demand job skill, and they can really prepare their students to enter this field. And you yourself, you mentioned that you had no experience with blockchain before, but now you're considering, as you're waiting for your bar results and looking towards 2021 to find a job, you're considering entering the blockchain industry now, correct?
Yeah, I would love to, especially as California, continues to build on its, Professor Neitz is in the working group helping write the legislation around blockchain in California. So as we kind of chug forward with that, it would be amazing to be already I feel a little bit ahead of the curve as it is, just because of her being so involved and my having researched. And she'll send, when we were in class, she would send us little updates about what they were discussing, and we would talk about it a little bit here and there, but definitely would love to, continue that and be able to kind of push beyond just mere regulation, and how do we actually like make it more understandable for people that don't actually have, I mean, they have a background like mine where, not a background in blockchain at all. So yeah, that I think that is really the draw. There's so much potential. So it would be great to be able to meet that, find it, help it grow.
Absolutely. Well, I wish you luck on that job search, and definitely hope that this encourages more people to bring blockchain courses to their schools. I hope to see more blockchain and law courses at law schools. Before we jump into your research and what you're working on, can you report back for us? I'm from San Francisco as well, but maybe anybody, we have a global audience, kind of report back on, I know 2020 was a weird year, but, what's the temperature of blockchain at Golden Gate University? Are there other activities? Do the students ever do meetups? Have you ever attended any meetups or in the wider San Francisco area?
I think at Golden Gate, it was just starting to get hot just because of this class and how much the students really enjoyed it. I know that I started talking about blockchain way more even outside of school. A lot of my friends just understood it as Bitcoin. So that was really just like foundationally it helped me because I helped bring the discussion a little bit past that. I think in San Francisco, especially, crypto and just the financial aspect of blockchain is really the centerpiece. We are such a hub for tech. So all of the companies here are pretty focused on that. And I think that's really, I mean, I haven't been downtown in a very long time, but it seems like that's really where everyone is at. It seems like it's still pretty hot. And I mean, especially with as well as Bitcoin has been doing, it seems like it's going to continue that way. And I don't know, I think San Francisco is a really great space for kind of bringing the discussion even beyond Bitcoin and the financial aspect of blockchain into how do we, even within tech and expanding on that. I think, I mean, I'm a little biased because that's mostly where I'm interested. I mean, crypto is fascinating, especially the history and just seeing the growth in the past 10 years and having grown up in San Francisco and seeing how much it's blown up. So I'm interested to see how it's going to continue, but also move beyond just that.
Yeah, and San Francisco is such a hub for any kind of industry, and with blockchain applications potentially being to touch or benefit so many different kinds of industry, healthcare, supply chain. We have partners all over the Bay Area who are not blockchain companies. Budweiser, all these people, all these financial giants who are starting to explore blockchain. So yeah, San Francisco is a perfect hub for it. Did you graduate this year?
I graduated from home in May. Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna just ask, check in. How was it adjusting to school life during COVID, and how was your graduation and all that?
So graduation was cool. It was about a half hour via Zoom. They've sent us little like calendar, not even a calendar, like Google surveys where like, do you want to have a graduation ceremony if we're able to do it in the fall, which now we're easing into winter. So TBD on if that's going to happen. But it was interesting at first. I think that I was kind of hyped on doing school from home for like a week, and then I was ready I actually enjoyed my commute. I like listening to my podcasts on BART and then walking to class and working out at the gym and doing, a normal routine. But I think even with studying for the bar, that is where it got really hard because the hours are so like, even if I'm not connected, I think being on Zoom kind of eased it because you have that sort of interaction with the bar. It's just like you and all of the material that needs to get into your head. So that's where it got kind of hard.
Yeah, and you can't even like pop out to a coffee shop to do some of that reading. Like I'm master's in philosophy, so a lot of my friends have gone on to law school. It's kind of the next stepping stone.
Right. Yeah.
So I've seen, so many of my friends go through bar exams, and you just go do some of it like around people could help, just like give a coffee. But yeah, that must have been rough. Well, congratulations on finishing it. And I know you're still waiting for the results, and good luck with that. Oh, I have to ask you, what's your go-to podcast on your commutes?
Ooh, so I think with Spotify, they do like your daily update. I don't know what it's called, but I would just hit that in the morning, and it had the Robin Hood Snacks podcast and then the NPR one too. So it would have my little news ones. I love JVN from Queer Eye, so I would listen to his podcast too. Similar, I mean, he's just so enthusiastic and happy to learn. And I think, and that's really what I'm going into even blockchain with, is just like very enthusiastic, happy to learn. I don't think that my enthusiasm measures as much as his, but I really enjoyed his. I think that's what I listened to if I was having a bad day too.
Yeah, I was just thinking that must be pretty uplifting. I'll have to check his out. Yeah, I do a lot of news and a lot of like myth busting and true crime.
Oh, true crime is, that's also a good one. Yeah, my favorite murder was, I think, consistent. And then I was noticing, especially when the Ted Bundy docuseries on Netflix came out, I binged that and I was like, okay, we'll take a little bit of a break and maybe do like 2 days a week of this, and then deal with people that are alive.
Yes, absolutely. Well, thanks for letting us get to know you a little better. So you'll be telling us a little more about your passions, because your research project just sounds super interesting, talking about international law and how it's this ideal that countries are trying to reach, but they all kind of write their own laws. And how can blockchain help with that, and in particular labor laws? So give us the like thesis presentation of your final paper.
Sure. So I was interested in how Levi's kind of went about enforcing their own, well, in the United States, we have labor laws that vary mostly from state to state, but there are federal laws that apply. My focus was more on international human rights law. So I focused on the UN and the International Labor Organization, and the I don't know, in the paper I wrote that it was kind of aspirational just because it's what we would all want, right? Where everyone has a living wage and access to healthcare in a way that they're not having to spend like half their salary paying into. So I just kind of took that and ran with it. The way that I framed it in terms of blockchain was really how Levi's is doing it. They have a survey where they are asking their factory workers, how are we doing with these things? Are we meeting X amount of, like the breaks that you need, the time off that you get, how, like, basically just like keep us accountable in these like very minimal ways. It's not enough. I think the woman that I interviewed for my paper, Kim Almeida, is the head of their worker well-being program, and that's the program that's putting all of this on. And she was saying that her background really informed her structuring of the program, and how it's not enough to just do these audits and walkthroughs of the factories just to make sure that the space is safe enough and they're getting, their 10-minute break, but that's pretty much it. It's been a really sad, the sad reality is that a lot of these companies are kind of like barely hitting the minimum. And then we've been seeing, especially with COVID, that certain companies are, not even being able to meet these regulations and restrictions that they're supposed to, where the space isn't safe enough to work in. There's not enough protective equipment for these factory workers now during the pandemic. So they're working in close quarters without masks. I haven't been seeing as many of these news articles recently, but I remember seeing quite a bit at the beginning. And there was like a big debate about reopening the Tesla factories while numbers were surging, and then seeing that people were dying because factories were reopening. So my question was like, how is blockchain being used to help mitigate all of this, even outside of a pandemic? And so what I talked to Kim about was just how happy the factory workers were to participate in this program. They had excellent results, and the fact that the turnout was up and using blockchain allowed for such a high turnout because there's no fear of retaliation. All of the surveys are on this blockchain. Nobody's touching it. Nobody's changing the answers. And it's anonymous. So you don't have to worry about someone getting angry with you, firing you because you're calling them out for, not paying you enough or not giving you enough breaks. Another thing that was really great to see and hear from Kim about was the fact that they were able to ask these factory workers, would you be interested in certain, education programs where like we can, being able to engage with their employees in a way that you get to know them better. We have such a strong focus on that in the corporate world, with team building exercises, but you don't really think about it with factory workers. But through this survey, you get to engage with them in such an honest way where like, do you want education programs? Are there resources for women and feminine hygiene products and things like that? There's just so much to think about that, it's amazing to see that Levi's is doing it, but how do we expand on this and make it so, Nike is also doing it, and other, like Walmart and other big corporations are also doing it.
Are Nike and Walmart also using blockchain to track these like survey responses, or just doing surveys in general?
I don't know. So my focus was on Levi's because they have a program and were even just online, the information that they presented and offered was pretty detailed. They were very transparent about the program, and it's very well, I don't want to say marketed, but just it's all there. So it almost made my job a little bit easier, but it made for such a fruitful interview with Kim. We were able to talk really just like about her background and how, even the legal implications are something that a lot of these companies aren't really thinking about, and the way that California might regulate and how that might hamper or really help these programs flourish. A lot of these companies are based in other states, so it'll be interesting to see how, other state regulations might impact the way that they're able to practice and perform here. But it puts a lot of responsibility on California and being able to, well, for me, I guess it puts responsibility on them to, write laws that allow for these programs to just grow, I think, because the results are pretty early on. That was something that Kim and I talked about, but it seems to be something that is worth pursuing.
Well, that's just so cool to hear that companies, I think we've had interviews with companies like, I have one with Boeing later, Budweiser, the Visas and MasterCards of the world who are looking at blockchain for their operations. But it's really cool to hear that there's a major company that people has with a lot of brand recognition that students might have heard of, right? Have heard of Levi, that are implementing are implementing blockchain solutions for not just their business operations, but for these things like labor rights. And can you speak a little bit more? I'm just curious, and maybe our viewers are as well, how exactly they're using blockchain, or what kind of blockchain they're using, or is it just that blockchain allows for the privacy, censorship resistance, and transparency that they want from a survey like this? Are they on a particular chain?
So they wrote a survey, and then they partnered with Consensus to put this survey on a blockchain, and it was put in at a couple factory. I think they started with just a handful of factories to see if, people would be receptive and responsive to this survey. And it turned out pretty well. So I think they're starting to use, or they're starting to expand a little bit. They were granted, I think it was a couple million from the State Department in order to create a platform using blockchain in order to survey their factory workers. I don't know the specifics, but I do know it was in partnership with Consensus.
Very cool. Yeah, so that's awesome. Great inspiration, hopefully, to our students who are interested in blockchain, don't know if they're really going to be able to have a career. It seems like it's just becoming more and more used in ways that you wouldn't even expect. And also that if they're interested in doing a really unique final project, that they should look to, and it seems like they were very willing to talk to you and help you write this project.
I think from my experience with Kim at Levi's, yeah, I mean, all the experience I've had, even with the speakers, like professionals in the field are so happy to engage with people that even have just like the slightest interest in blockchain and just want to learn more. Even for my own just personal research, I reached out to a woman in New York who started her own company using blockchain, Stephanie Benedetto, who started Queen of Raw. And I messaged her on LinkedIn just saying like, hi, I graduated from law school and I'm interested in the work that you're doing. I'm hoping that you get this and would be willing to connect because I'd like to talk to you. And we spoke earlier this week, and it is just, it seems like there's just so much information out there and people that are happy to impart any sort of advice, and just they really want to help you out. And her, company is a little bit, they're taking a different angle with blockchain in sustainability in the environment and trying to mitigate excessive water consumption and waste in fabrics and textile, which is good in New York with, as much fashion and style and all of the big design houses that are out there. And it seems to be doing really, really well. And she was more than happy to talk to me. And I had her on the phone for probably a half hour. So
that's great. Yeah, super. And hopefully, inspires our students to kind of put themselves out there and reach out. And there are so many people in the industry, especially the blockchain industry, who are willing to answer and help people get up to speed. So are there any other blockchain applications? I know you said that you understand the importance of cryptocurrency, and it's definitely interesting, but what you really like to think about is how blockchain can be applied to the law itself and to make our legal institutions better or to make the world better. What are some other blockchain applications that you are really interested in?
I really love what Queen of Raw is doing in terms of just cutting water consumption and waste and chemical use in fabrics by promoting recycling and reselling, and using a blockchain to put all of the excess materials. They're put on this blockchain where if I'm looking to buy, I know what's out there and I can buy it directly from H&M or whoever else has excess. I'm thinking, I know that it's something that I had been thinking about even while writing this paper, but what I'm interested in and I want to do more research on is what happens to copyrights and trademarks if they're all on a blockchain. And in terms of fashion, what happens when like a bigger design house puts out their fall or winter or whatever collection, and then lower fast fashion brands, I wouldn't say lower, but more accessible places that I could go shopping at, put out similar designs. And, we have a very healthy practice of copyright and trademark law. And so what happens if it's all on a blockchain? And does litigation go down? What happens to that body of litigation and precedent? Yeah, so that's another area. But I think that the question really holds to almost everything. If we put contracts on a blockchain, what happens when people breach on a very basic level? And I think the more obvious answer is just like, it's easier to figure out who's wrong because you can't change what's on this blockchain. But then you get into like all of the exceptions and things that make contract law so exciting and stressful.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm definitely excited about potential applications of blockchain for copyright and just progeny and just giving credit where credit's due. Making sure content creators are paid and all of that. Mm-hmm. So you're waiting for the bar results, looking to get a job next year. What are you working on now, and how can people find you if they want to learn more?
I'm on LinkedIn. My LinkedIn is just my name, Mary Basile 7. So that's like the ID at the end of the link. And I am looking to start a blog / website. This is all kind of new for me, but I'm pretty much just trying to do this same kind of research and try to connect both fields, and expand my own knowledge on the subject because it's something that I do find so interesting. And that link will most likely be my name, marybasile.me. And I'm hoping to just write about pertinent legal issues and the way that blockchain might be able to, I wouldn't say solve, because that would be just a little bit too easy, but at least like work with these issues. And even just things that I'm seeing that might not be legal related, but pretty exciting for blockchain. And yeah, just might be able to share some thoughts on that.
Awesome. Well, really looking forward to read some of your work, and hopefully anyone who's interested in maybe hiring you or reading some of your work can find you on LinkedIn. Before we go, let's wrap it up with a little holiday cheer, asking everyone, what's something that brought you joy this year?
So I think just despite the whole pandemic and all of the, I think hardships that we've all endured in our own ways, I think having more time with my family has been nice. Even though I think we're all getting pretty sick of each other at this point. But with Thanksgiving coming up too, I'm really grateful for having had as much time together as we've had. Yeah,
absolutely. And what do you hope for next year, whether in the blockchain world or a personal life?
I'm hoping for a job, hopefully early 2021. That would be ideal. But I guess I don't know, I think that's pretty much it. I'm really ready to, just kind of move on and be able to put this law degree to use and do it in a creative way. And I think that, for me, I would love to be able to do it in blockchain and being able to merge both interests.
Absolutely. Well, big things on the horizon, lots to look forward to, I think. Hope that you're staying safe and having wonderful holidays. And thank you so much, Mary Basile, for joining us at Reimagine 2020. Everyone stay tuned for more university segments and other interviews for the conference. Thanks.